to my channel. My name is Annie. Shooting, fishing, and outdoors. Like, comment, share, subscribe.
Good job.
Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about our spring baits for April edition.
That's right. And as you can notice, the boat's not here, but the kayaks are.
Yeah, and I bought me some rod holders. Catch some big catfish.
Yeah, we're kind of playing around with the kayaks a little bit here. Our boat's in the shop. We're getting the oil changed, and I had to get the bunks replaced. They were starting to go bad. The Big Bass Splash was going on this weekend, and then next weekend's your birthday, so I figured it was probably a good little stretch to go ahead and get the boat fixed. And also, we're going to be at Redcrest next weekend. Well, the expo, and we're going to be watching live stream. But somebody's birthday is next weekend too, right? That's right. How old are you going to be?
9.
9 years old. All right, guys. Yeah, so sorry the garage is a little bit of a mess here, but we got our kayaks out. We're gonna probably do a little kayak fishing the next few weeks, and but we do. Ethan does baseball, so he's gonna be busy with baseball and practice. So honestly, we probably don't fish as much in April as we do in other months, and it's a really good month to fish. Bass are spawning, crappie are spawning, and I mean, there may be some shellcrackers spawning this full moon coming up too. But anyway, we're going to go over our April baits. And also too, we're going to do something a little fun. We're going to do our Redcrest predictions, kind of who we're rooting for and who we think is going to ultimately win the tournament. Who are you pulling for, Ethan?
Oh, Jacob. Let's go, Jacob.
Jacob Wall, yeah, I think he's going to be hard to beat. He's a local guy. But yeah, stay tuned. We're going to go over our April top baits.
Okay.
All right, I apologize. I'm using my deep freeze here as my table. But first bait we're going to talk about, and honestly, I have caught more big bass on this lure, on this bait, this time of the year probably than any other, and that is a Zoom Magnum UV speed worm. Kind of my... Well, I think there's 3 colors that you need. Gotta have a red bug. And when the water, if it's a little clearer water, sun's up or it's getting day, this watermelon candy is a great color as well. I caught my PB on Guntersville on this worm right here. Also, you know, if it's early morning, get you a June bug color, darker color as well. But that's probably, if I could just pick one bait, it'd probably be this one. And also too, like, I have caught big bass on this lure. The 2 biggest ones I've caught in April were on laydowns. Just kind of throwing it up toward the bank and then just kind of working it through a laydown. This is a 3/8 ounce head. I may downsize that to a quarter. I kind of go back and forth just depending on the situation. But that's probably my number 1 for April. Now, you know, if things get tough, then I'll go away from that and go to the smaller one here, just the UV speed worm, the smaller one. And specifically, you got to have this one in the boat. This is watermelon candy red. Man, I had a guide trip years ago, and it was one of the first. Well, we just kind of moved here and was getting into bass fishing, and man, we tore them up on this particular worm here. 4/0 EWG hook, like 3/16 ounce head. You know, you can go up or down with that depending on your depth that you're fishing, but it's hard to go wrong with that. I got that one set up here. Right now I got a 3/16 ounce on there. Tried something a little different with that. I saw Seth Fighter put an O-ring on his hook like that. I don't know if that's going to give it a little more action. I'm going to try it, see how that does. If it starts giving me fits with the grass, I may take that off, but I thought I'd give it a try. I mean, he's a pro, so he may know something I don't know. But I do have everything pegged. Got the little peg on there, you know, just bringing it through all that grass. So, Speedworm is my number 1 plastic. So yeah, number 2 for the month of April is a Wacky Worm, Wacky Cinco. This hook here, this is a VMC Wacky Weedless. Now that's a size 2. This one is a size 1. But I like pairing that up with a Cinco. I also have that VMC crossover ring. This one right here is a size 6. And the size 6 pairs up really well with a Cinco. You can do a 5. Let me show you what a 5 looks like. One of the crossover rings. This is the 5, and you can see it's a little tight on there. But you know, get you some 5s and 6s. But this 5 is a little tight on there. The 6 works fine. But I would have both in the boat. So yeah, Cinco, like if you're shallow and you know, fishing for bass on bed, or if you're just throwing at you know, those brighter spots in the grass, it's hard to go wrong with that. Should be down by now. You just pop it like that. All right.
I got one.
You sure? You got a? Yeah, there you go.
It's Cinco. I'm gonna boat quit this one.
Look at that. Yeah.
Not that big. Yeah, little black bass.
Go right here. Close to it.
Woo! Little black bass on the Cinco. Thanks for taking me fishing. This Cinco is a fishing machine.
Boy.
Another good one. Another black bass on the Cinco. Look at that, GoPro. This is a fishing machine.
All right, my favorite Cinco colors. I like this root beer red and gold flake. I use that a lot during the spawn. And of course, you got to have a black and blue flake, and then this is a watermelon candy, and probably my favorite is just green pumpkin blue. But those are probably my go-tos here. Oh, and I had to mention this Cinco. Get a little sun, this green pumpkin magic. Man, that kind of gold silver flake in there. You get a little sun. That is an awesome color. And I apologize, I don't know if you call it Neco or Neco, but basically putting a nail weight in a Wacky Worm. And if I do that, I find myself using the finesse worms more, but I don't do a weed guard or anything on that. This is just a size 2 Wacky Neco hook. I think this is this one in particular right here is a Gamakatsu, the Stinger, but I also have some of the VMC Redline, their new version of them too. But yeah, I usually do more of the finesse worms with the nail weights. My 2 favorites, I like the worms that kind of float. This is the Z-Man finesse worms. Now, if you guys use the finesse worms, the Elastec, you gotta have the weights that will go into the Elastec. Now, I just made a mistake. I say a mistake. I bought these tungsten spikes from Z-Man thinking I could just press them into the into the Elastec, but you gotta have their rattle shaker tool, and of course it says that right there on them. But yeah, if you're rigging a Lastech, either get these type of little nail weights or get their rattle shaker tool, and you can put these little tungsten spikes in there. But besides that, the other one, and you don't have to have a special tool for that, this X-Zone 6-inch deception worm. This particular color is green pumpkin blue. Man, that is my go-to for like a Neco rig, whatever you call it. But you don't have to have a special tool. Now this particular worm, it does float. It floats, but it's not like the Elastech where you have trouble like Texas rigging it, which is probably the main reason I like this worm. But good worm, I like it. You can use just regular nail weights in it. All right, so if you're rigging this Neco rig, let me show you here. So, and this is kind of full disclosure here, but the VMC, the crossover rings for the finesse worms, you need a size 4, okay? That's gonna kind of pair up the best with it. But bring it through here. But I kind of bring it to about right there. And keep it where that part right there is facing toward the rib part. Alright, so next thing here, real simple. I mean, just take your little nail weight, punch it in. And this is why I like this this X-Zone deception worm. Is because you can nail weight it like super easy. You don't have to have any kind of special tools. Just kind of punch it in there. Alright, and then I got my size 2 finesse Neco hook, and then you just take it through and rig it just like that. Now, real important when you're doing this, you do not want to rig it like this. That's not how you want to do it. I mean, I guess you could do it sideways if you wanted to, but I find the best way to do it is to rig it like this. Bring it through with that nails down here, and your hook point is up. And what happens is whenever you're hopping it, that tail will stay up like that. And a few things too, it actually kind of helps it. It's not, obviously it's not weedless because you have an exposed hook, but it comes through, you know, some of that underbrush and stuff better like this, because that it's almost like the front of the hook acts as the weed guard as you're bringing it along. The other thing too is whenever the bass gets it, man, 90% of the time when they get it, that hook right there just gets them in the top of the mouth. And usually you don't even have to set the hook. You can just kind of reel into them. And that little stout, real sharp little hook, man, it pegs them. Great hook, by the way. But yeah, that's kind of how I set up my Neco rig. And you can throw this into beds. And with that nail weight, you know, with the Senko, sometimes it'll want to kind of, you know, float out. Because I usually do the Senko weightless. But with this, with the little nail weight in it, it'll stay in the bed pretty good, and you can just kind of shake it, and then that tail's just doing that number right there. But yeah, that's kind of how I set it up. And now I will say this, and this is kind of full disclosure on this. Occasionally, you'll bring one back, and it'll do that number right there, and that's no good. So I find myself going more back to the Elastech baits with Z-Man, because I can just hook it straight into that worm and I don't have to worry about that happening with that VMC crossover ring, because I've missed a few fish doing it that way. Now if I'm just fishing in the pond, yeah, I do that and it'll save my worms and stuff. But if I'm fishing a tournament, that's something to consider, because if that thing wraps around and one gets it, you're gonna have a hard time getting a hook in that fish with it like that. So just kind of full disclosure, like I said, I like these VMC crossover rings, and most of the time you don't have any issues, but you could, and I've had it happen a few times where it kind of crosses over like that, and then I can't get a good hook in that fish. So FYI, but that's my setup. Let me here, I'll just show you what the way I do the Z-Man. Alright, so this is a Z-Man finesse worm, and this is the Neco Shrooms Wacky rig weights, and this is a 1/20th of an ounce. So what you do with that, real simple, just take that weight, stick it in, and it's got these little like barbs that helps keep that weight in there and keeps it from coming out. But yeah, so you don't really need anything, any kind of like crossover ring, or I mean, you could do the little small rings. Here, I'll go get one. All right, so the cool thing with the Elastec is that you can just hook it straight into the worm, and you don't have to worry. I mean, that worm is going to last for a long time. That Elastec is tough. And then you got the floating tail that's going to be kind of still up. I find myself, like if I'm on Guntersville, that's probably what I'm going to do right there. I really like this worm a lot here, but like I was showing y'all earlier, when you rig it up with that crossover ring, sometimes that hook can wrap around. But the other thing too is if you hook straight into this worm, the X-Zone, and it's gonna rip. You're gonna probably catch one bass and it's done. Whereas with this setup, you can catch them and catch them and catch them and catch them. So just a little tip there, just kind of full disclosure on that. But yeah, if money's on the line, if you're fishing a tournament, I would probably go more toward the Z-Man baits, just so the way that's set up, that's not going to wrap around very easily. But with that VMC crossover ring, it definitely can. So there's my setup for that. All right, and I talked about this briefly, the drop shot. So that is a size 1 VMC Finesse Neco. And that's got a little 1/8 ounce kind of a cylinder drop shot. And I'll pair that up with like a Robo worm or this X-Zone Deception worm here that I was telling you about. Now some colors for the Robo worm that I like to use. This Morning Dawn Hologram. Now that was probably my favorite one for March, but I'll still use it. I mean, I'll use it throughout the summer. I tore them up last July on this worm, drop shotting off, deep on the ledges. But that color, Aaron's Green Pumpkin, is a really, really good one. It's got that blue kind of strip through it and looks really good. This one here is kind of like a Margarita Mutilator color. Folkstad Special, I like that one. And then this Martin's Madness is another good one. I really like it. It's like a Morning Dawn color, but it has a little bit of orange in it. respond. Look how his eyes are getting red. See?
Oh, okay. I guess I'll throw this drop shot.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's pretty
I'm
nice.
throwing this one now.
All right, we talked about our plastics. Next thing, we're going to talk about our moving baits a little bit. Got to have swim jig. These are my two favorites here, and pretty much all I use. This is the Dirty Jigs Compact. This is Alabama Brim. I got that paired up with a Crush City Cleanup Crawl, Green Pumpkin. Looks real good, real natural. And then this is their, I can't remember the name of this color, but just kind of a shad looking color. I got a 3-inch Mayer on there. But that's my favorite swim jig. And then, of course, get a little chop on the water, or maybe a little more stained water. You gotta have the chatterbaits, and of course my go-to is the Z-Man jackhammer. One thing in April, I am gonna kind of go away from the reds, and I'm gonna transition more to bluegill and shad colors. So which one I pick will depend on the water clarity, if it's cloudy or if it's sunny. If it's sunny, I'm gonna get one of these to give a little flash. If it's not, then I'll probably go to one of those, and water clarity will depend kind of which one I use. But these are some of my favorites. I will say this, the other day I was fishing and pretty much kept a chatterbait in my hand the whole day and had a pretty good day. And I was using this dirty white color that has the gold blade, and had this freeloader on it all day. Well, some of the places I was fishing, I was ripping it out of the lily pad stems and whatnot, and I honestly was kind of disappointed, man. There was a few times, and I wasn't like I was getting short strikes. I think it was just because I was ripping it through heavy cover. This little tail would just, man, it was just popping off. I went through a bag of these in one day, so I didn't think it would be an issue because it was pintail, but boy, I like I said, I went through them in one day. Now, if you got unlimited money, it may not be that big of a deal, but I bought some of these chatter spikes from Z-Man, and you know it's a Lastec, so it's way more durable. But I got a few different colors here, that chartreuse and white, kind of to go with what I had going the other day. But then a few others here. This color here kind of mimics that, and then just kind of a bluegill color. So yeah, the other color is called the Deal, and it's kind of a green pumpkin back with kind of a, it's not pearl, but more of a white underbelly. Very natural looking. I guess I left it on the boat whenever I took it to the shop. But anyway, that's another good color. I'll probably substitute that one for that green pumpkin. I think it's called green pumpkin shad or green pumpkin white chatterbait. Just a real natural looking color. I'll tell you another one. If I'm trying to pair up and get as much flash as possible, this green pumpkin disco freeloader, man, look at all the silver flake in that. Yeah, if I'm trying to really maximize my flash, I'm probably gonna be pairing that up with that one. Really looks good. It's a 4. All right, guys, here's a little thing I do with my chatterbaits and swim jig. So I throw my chatterbait and my swim jig on 50-pound braid on this really parabolic 7'6" medium heavy. But because I throw it on braid, you know, this braid will fade, and whenever it fades, it's pretty visible in the water. So what I like to do, I take this green Sharpie and I keep it on the boat. I keep a few of them on the boat, and I really try to get that line where it's that deep, dark kind of green color. I go up, I don't know, I go up 4 or 5 feet. I mean, I know a lot of companies market Braid that doesn't fade. Well, but I haven't seen one yet that doesn't fade over time. But yeah, this is what I do, and I do this for like when I'm flipping, or when I'm punching mats and later in the summer, I'll do the same thing. But you know, I'm working this bait pretty fast. I mean, this isn't a slow drag. Now, I'm slow dragging a worm on the bottom. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have it on 17 or 20 pound fluorocarbon. But with this, I'm moving this bait, so I'm hoping they're not gonna have enough time to see this braid. At least that's my thought on it there. But yeah, get you a little Sharpie here off Amazon or wherever, and keep that line when it starts fading. Kind of touch it up there. I feel like it helps. All right, we talked about the swim jig. We talked about the chatterbaits. Next lure is a jerkbait. All right, and a jerkbait, a lot of people think about that, you know, more in the winter months and pre-spawn. But I can tell you, if you get a little wind and you're, you know, bed fishing, if you can fish it clean, I've caught quite a few bass off a bed on that right there, that jerkbait. And especially if you get sun and wind, I like one that has a lot of flash on it. This is that PXR Maverick, and I don't know what color that is, but it's the one with the most flash that they had. And yeah, that's a really good jerkbait. So yeah, for the month of April, get you a jerkbait. Have that on the deck for sure. But like I said, for bedded bass on bed, but also once we get toward the end of April and they start getting post-spawn, jerkbait's real good on those outer grass lines. And I had a really good day fishing around docks. Had a cloudy day, light drizzle, end of April, and I whacked them on a jerkbait. All right, next lure here, hard bait, moving bait. This is the Strike King Hybrid Hunter. This one here particularly is the Junior. And I've swapped the hooks out. I got a VMC bladed treble on that one. And then the VMC red line on the back. But really like this. Get a little chop on the water. You're fishing shallow. This is not necessarily for bedded bass, but like, you know, just covering water, kind of like the chatterbait. You could kind of fish this interchangeably, same places you'd fish that chatterbait, but you definitely you know, you have to be able to work it through that grass and pump it, really fish it very similar to you would a chatterbait. I mean, I have this is on the same setup that my lipless crankbait was on, 7'6", medium heavy, cranking. So it's got a good backbone to be able to work it out of the grass, but then it has that really soft tip. But that's another good option. I had a day early April a couple years ago, and I was still catching pre-spawn bass, and back of a pocket had some wind, and yeah, I was catching them real good on that particular bait right there. And that color had clear water. I think that's called gizzard shad. But I like that one, and then I'll show you a few others here. That's a new color they came out with. And then also too, I like a square bill. This in April as well. Had a really good day a couple years ago fishing some riprap. Just shallow. And that's the Yozuri 3DB. Really like that square bill there. Alright guys, last but not least, a glide bait. This is a 6 cents draw. I got that on 20-pound line, 7'6" heavy. That tip, believe it or not, actually is pretty soft on this this 7'6" heavy. I mean, it's not a broomstick, but I really like it for big swim baits and for using it for these glides. Now, I'll be honest with you, I have not done much glide baiting, but I'm gonna try to start doing a little bit more. I'm gonna throw this around. Let me tell you something I saw last week in the pond behind the house. All right, last week, Ethan and I were hitting some wiffle balls in the backyard. I was working with him with baseball. It was late in the evening, and I was pitching to him, and all of a sudden I heard some splashing in the pond. And I looked back there and didn't think much of it at first because we have geese and ducks back there, and they're always splashing around. But I looked, and once we got closer, there was a huge gizzard shad up on top of the water, and there was about a 5-pound bass that was literally trying to eat it. And it seemed like he was just like sharking it and just hitting it, and like he hit it multiple times, and then he finally like engulfed it and got it in. But it was just the craziest thing, you know. I mean, it was still pretty cool last week. But that big bass, and I put a few Guntersville bass in this pond behind our house, so I knew it was some, you know, we have some big bass back there, and you're liable to catch one at any time. But it was pretty cool to watch that. And I guarantee you that big gizzard shad that he was eating was every bit as big as that 6 cents draw. So anyway, we know glide baits are really good in the spring, and I'm probably gonna shift away from like the Alabama rig for my big bait, and put on that big glide bait now, and I'll fish it some here and there. All right, one more bait, and I apologize, the neighbors are having a tree cut down, so if you hear a chainsaw, it's my neighbors. But I forgot to mention this earlier. A 3/0, this is the 3/16 ounce Owner Flashy Swimmer. Pair that with like a 3.8-inch Kytech or the 4-inch Mayer. Awesome shallow water lure. You know, kind of some of those same scenarios where you'd be fishing that swimming worm, the speed worm. You could do this as well. You have a little chop, go with the blade. But the cool thing is if you got, you know, slick water conditions, you can pop this little blade off, and then you just got a weedless swim bait. And that's a really good lure for this time of the year. All right, guys, one more lure. I just thought about it. I started not to put it in the April baits, but I'm gonna give you guys the juice. So for the end of the month, don't forget to get those deep crankbaits back out. So there's not gonna be a lot of bass out on the ledges, but there will be a few. Last April, I mean, the end of April, I just checked a few of the little offshore spots, and I scanned one of them, and there was a good little group there, and I made a few casts on them, and I caught a 6-pounder. So the ones that are there are probably going to be hungry. So you're not going to scan it and probably see like tons of shad and tons of white bass and all that in April. But once we start getting toward the end of the month, there'll be a few out there, and it's worth checking and keeping those deep cranks in your boat. Oh, baby, that is a giant. Oh my goodness. All right, here's some of mine. And what's funny is I haven't even put the hooks back on them. What I end up doing, my 3/4 ounce rattle traps, I'll use the same hooks that I use on those on these DT20s. So I got to swap those back. But yeah, get those DT20s, put those in the boat. And then I also like this hardcore 7+. You can launch this thing a mile, like really chunk it out there. And I keep those in the boat too. So yeah, you know, 5XDs, 6XDs, DT16, DT20s, and then these hardcore 7+. Man, that is a big profile right there. And caught some big ones on those in the past. So definitely, now early in the month, probably not, but by the end of the month, I'm telling you, check some of those spots, and it'd be worth winding a crankbait through there a few times, see if you can get a reaction bite and get a big one. All right, so yeah, we're in the backyard. We're fishing a little bit here. Let's talk about Redcrest for a little bit. It's April 3rd through the 6th, and I have traditionally, that time of the year, I mean, I'm on the bank. Like, that's the only way I'm fishing. I'm most interested this year to see if there's a offshore, like a jig head minnow, forward-facing sonar, if that's going to play a role. The other thing too, you know, they only have one period where they can utilize forward-facing sonar, and I can tell you, like, the full moon, I think, is going to be the next weekend. I think it's April the 12th, and I feel like probably the largest push of bass will be up shallow then. But I'm going to tell you, like, 2 weeks ago, I was fishing and there were already tons of beds up shallow, and I tried to sight fish a nice bass for a little while. I say 2 weeks ago, it was March 21st, I think. So there was already a bunch of bass up shallow then, and just here around the pond, there's tons of little bucks up shallow, and they're already, you know, making little beds. But I just don't feel like it's full-blown wide open yet. Now, we're a week away too from Redcrest. Well, I say a week away. They're gonna start Wednesday, aren't they? Yeah. So they only have a few days. But like I said, I'm most anxious to see if that first period, if there's going to be a jig head minnow bite, you know, utilizing forward-facing sonar. Now there's some locals in it, some local pros.
Our favorite one, Jacob Wall.
Yeah, Jacob Wall's in it. So Jacob, probably of all the locals, lives the closest here. He's a New Hope guy, and we're Owens Crossroads, so we're real close. Man, I see Jacob all the time on the lake. That dude, I swear he lives on the water. And I guarantee you there's not anyone in this tournament that has spent more time on the water than him, at least the last 3 or 4 years. He's going to be hard to beat. I think he'll do well. Chris Lane is a local guy, and he's known to be a shallow water pro. I expect him to do well as well. But yeah, then there's Justin Lucas. He's a local. Andrew Nordby qualified. He won Kentucky Lake Tackle Warehouse Invitational. Yeah, Andrew Nordby's in it. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So yeah, there's quite a few local pros in it that are going to have, I feel like, a pretty good advantage. But you know, if it's one shallow, there's so many good shallow water areas. It's hard to say that one area is going to be, you know, head and shoulders above the other. I guess that's my prediction. I think it's, you know, I feel like this is a spawning event, and I think it's going to be one shallow. Yeah, so we're looking at some of the pros that are in it. I hope y'all can see that.
Got him.
Oh, Ethan's got one. That's a nice one. Yeah, come over here, show the camera.
Nice little bluegill.
Oh, he hooked him in the eyeball.
Of course.
Oh, bless him.
Now he's half blind.
But yeah, some of these pros here, just kind of scrolling through them. So, David Dudley in 2023, that May Guntersville event, dude fished his wacky worm up real shallow, and everybody else was like offshore, it seemed like. And I think he had a top 10 finish, maybe even a top 5 finish. Did really well in that tournament. I expect him to do well in this one as well. Keep scrolling down. Chris Lane. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I think Chris Lane's gonna win. That dude is a shallow water hammer. I expect him to do really well, and the fact that he lives here, he knows this lake, I think he'll do well. Justin Lucas is another Guntersville local guy. Andrew Nordby. So yeah. And there's Jacob Wall. So we're rooting for Jacob, but man, it is some hammers in this event, obviously. So hopefully Jacob will pull out the W, but I'm gonna predict Chris Lane is gonna win. We're rooting for Jacob Wall, and yeah, we're gonna go to the expo at least one day, and we're gonna follow online the streaming as well. Ethan, who are you choosing? Who are you picking?
Jacob Wheeler.
You're picking Jacob Wheeler? Well, that's a pretty good guess. I guarantee you he's probably going to be in the top 10. That dude could catch him in his sleep. You're predicting Jacob Wheeler?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's probably a good guess. I think he'll top 10. I'm still going with Chris Lane, but we're rooting for Jacob Wall. We think Jacob has a really good chance at this one. All right. We did double. Look at us. So finally, my little red Cinco. I got one of these little dinks. Yeah, Ethan caught a bluegill. But yeah, let me just show you this little hook. I mean, it just pegged him right in the roof of the mouth. You don't even hardly have to set the hook. But he's about as big as the worm. You know, the other thing too that's going to be interesting about Redcrest is that, you know, they're in an every fish counts format. So you got to be efficient with your time. I mean, if you waste 30 minutes on a nice bass when you could be covering water and maybe catching 2 or 3 others, you know, I mean it's something to consider. I mean, there's a lot. It's going to be a very interesting tournament, I mean, as far as strategy goes. Because there's definitely going to be bass on bed. It's just, are you going to be willing to waste that much time trying to catch a big one? Like this little bass right here, he's circled me. He circled the bed like 4 or 5 times here. He's had it in his mouth twice. Alright, what'd you catch?
This is
Oh yeah, it's a nice bluegill.
it's a bull.
Yeah. Good job.
God bless
There you
you,
go.
and don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Catch you on the next video.